Today we are going to get you an interesting insight into hazard analysis and critical control points, that is Haccp certification, offered by Bureau of Indian Standards. Hello friends, I'm Amit Arora, and today we're going to look closely as to what is Haccp all about, the different kinds of hazards that a food company may face, and critical control points we need to identify to prevent any such type of hazards, and how Haccp certification offered by the BIS can help our business. ISO, as many of you may be well aware, is an international organization for standardization. It was established in 1947 and is based out of Geneva, Switzerland. It has a membership of 165 national standard institutes worldwide. Let us now glance through integral points about the Bureau of Indian Standards. BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, is the national standards body of India and represents the country in the International Forum on Standardization, including International Organization for Standardization (ISO) and International Electrotechnical Commission (IEC). The BIS is the founding member of ISO and the sole body representing India at the ISO. BIS product certification alone offers 36,762 licenses covering 1,010 products. The BIS has been operating management system certification schemes since 1991 under BIS Act of Parliament 2016 and is the only body to do so in India.
A management system certification provides various benefits to the organization. And first of all, it ensures efficient utilization of resources and improved financial performance. And number two, the improved risk management, that is by identifying risk and planning to mitigate them. And number three, it demonstrates the commitment and compliance to regulatory and customer requirements. BIS currently offers 18 certification schemes at present, corresponding to various national and international standards. BIS Management Certification Scheme Service provides confidence to the interested party. It ensures improvement of process on a continuous basis. It also ensures objectivity, confidentiality, and impartiality in the certification process. BIS certification scheme on QMS, EMS, and Food Safety Management System, that is FSMS certification scheme of BIS, accredited from National Accreditation Board of Certification Bodies, QCI.
First license in management system certification was granted in 1992 for ISO 9001 quality management system. Let's now take a look at some of the most popular management system certification schemes that have been formulated by the BIS. Why do we need a management system certification? Well, it acts as a tool to support business goals. It builds sustainable business performances over time and increases stakeholders' trust. Well, the advantages of certification from BIS are several. Come, let us glance through them. It is certification from a national standards body of India. All schemes are operated in accordance with the international standard ISO IEC 17021 Part 1 2015. It is cost effective. Remote and virtual auditing also reduces cost of stay and travel. BIS has a team of professional, competent, qualified and ethical auditors in all technical areas. All auditors are also experienced in conformity assessment of products and services. BIS has a robust certification process with 2 stages of audits. It delivers timely services through its 5 regional offices. BIS has a systematic approach in operations, a reputed client list, provides credible, efficient and impartial management system certification service following national and international standards. Any organization interested to seek certification can register on manakonline.in and submit their application online. BIS certification process. At BIS, a robust certification process is followed for grant of license. The applicant submits certification application online, whereafter the application is scrutinized by the BIS team. On the basis of given criteria, it is either rejected or accepted. Once accepted, the applicant coordinates with the team for stage 1 of audit. Basically is to check the basic QA system, documentation, manufacturing facility, testing equipment availability, types of products to assess the time requirements. The team visits the applicant's office to further streamline the management systems and processes to enhance efficiency of operations and overall quality of product or service as per international standards. Some suggestions and instructions are given and the applicant must comply by them in the given duration. After stage 1 analysis by the team, another appointment is fixed for stage 2 of audit. Audit stage 2. To cover all the processes, all products, factory testing, process checks and system requirements. Another analysis gauges if the follow-up is satisfactory or not, or if any more action is required. Once the team is satisfied with the system standards and all certification requirements, a final audit report is prepared and submitted to authorities and recommendations are made for awarding license to the applicant. After grant of license, a surveillance audit plan is prepared, ensuring surveillance visits at least once a year. First surveillance is carried out within 12 months from the date of certification. Next surveillance audit is to be completed in the next calendar year. And in the 3rd year, surveillance audit is replaced with recertification or the renewal audit. BIS offers a combination of 2 schemes in which cost of certification is not doubled. It's like a combined audit. Let's now take a closer look at HACCP. We all know that prevention is better than cure. Hazard analysis and critical control points, that is HACCP, IS 15000-2013 is all about collective internationally accepted techniques and preventive measures taken by food establishments to ensure food safety from hazards. Now these hazards may come at any stage of the food chain, during processing, packaging or storage. The idea is to save food from microbiological, chemical and physical contamination.
HACCP certification demonstrates to the consumers an organization's commitment to producing safe food. It facilitates to transform your brand and acts as an effective tool to enter markets and grab new business opportunities. The application of the HACCP system promotes international trade by increasing buyers' confidence.
Every company needs to identify these type of hazards and risks that can occur in their product and the critical control points that may require necessary preventive action, like setting critical limits and corrective control measures. This action is to be monitored periodically during HACCP implementation. HACCP certification has many benefits. It enhances brands and private labels, promotes consumer confidence, assures conformity to regulatory and market requirements.
Besides enhancing food safety, other benefits of applying HACCP include effective use of resources, savings to the food industry, and more timely response to food safety problems. HACCP enhances the responsibility and degree of control at the level of food industry. A properly implemented HACCP system leads to greater involvement of food handlers in understanding and ensuring food safety, thus providing them with renewed motivation in their work.
Let us now understand a few basics on food safety. What do we understand by safety? Freedom from risk or danger. What is food safety? An assessment that food will not cause harm to the consumer when it is prepared or taken according to its intended use. What is hazard? A biological, chemical or physical agent in food with the potential to cause an adverse health effect. Let us now understand the history of HACCP. It's very interesting how it was formed and when. Well, it was way back in 1959 when NASA requested Pillsbury to produce food for astronauts. And the issues that arose at that point of time were food was to be designed for consumption under zero gravity. Zero gravity. It was necessary to ensure 100% safety free from biological contamination. Pillsbury adopted a preventive approach. In 1971, concept of HACCP was presented to public at the National Conference on Food Products. HACCP was developed by Codex Alimentarius Commission.
History of HACCP system goes back to the 1960s. The HACCP concept was pioneered for the production of safe foods for the US space programs. It was introduced as a system that could provide safety while reducing dependence on independent testing and inspection. Today, HACCP is an internationally accepted technique for preventing hazards along the food supply chain. It is based on the identification of food safety hazards that may occur along the food processing chain and their controls in order to ensure food safety. Hazards must be identified and evaluated at each process step.
Let us now understand different types of hazards that concern us. Beginning with physical hazards like filth, insects, pests, any other extraneous visible matter, water and air. Then chemical hazards, which will include cleaning chemicals, pesticide residues, heavy metals, allergens, veterinary drug residues, antibiotic residues, mycotoxins like patulin, argotin, chemical additives, plasticizers, other toxic materials and plastic packaging, migration and all. Biological hazards like macrobiological, both internal or external parasites, microbiological, which will include fungi, bacteria, viruses, including pathogens. And then finally, radiological hazards. Radiological contamination of drinking water generally occurs as a result of contamination by human-made sources of radiation.
In the course of hazard analysis, the organization determines the strategy to be followed in order to control identified hazards. HACCP gives a systematic preventive approach to reduce the likelihood of occurrences that could jeopardize the safety of products and consequently health of consumers. HACCP is based on an engineering system known as failure mode and effect analysis, which identifies at each step of process the errors that can occur, their probable causes and their effects to establish the most adequate control mechanism. HACCP is compatible with other quality management systems like ISO 9001.
The 7 important principles of HACCP. Principle 1. Conduct a hazard analysis. The process of collecting and evaluating information on hazards and conditions leading to their presence to decide which are significant to food safety and should be addressed in the HACCP plan.
Now let us explain in detail about the various principles of HACCP which are integral to its implementation. There are 7 such principles. Let us begin with the first principle. The first principle is conduct a hazard analysis. Now what is hazard analysis? This is a process of identifying, collecting and evaluating information on all types of hazards and conditions leading to their presence to decide which are significant to food safety and thus should be addressed in the HACCP plan. Now these type of hazards include both the microbiological and chemical hazards apart from various physical hazards.
Principle 2. Identify the critical control points, the CCPs, a step at which control can be applied and is essential to prevent or eliminate a food safety hazard or reduce it to an acceptable level.
The second principle is identification of critical control points, or which are also called as the CCPs in the process flow. So what is a CCP? It is a step at which a control can be applied and is essential to prevent or eliminate a food safety hazard, or if it is not possible to eliminate it, to reduce it to an acceptable level.
Principle 3. Establish critical limits, a criteria which separates acceptability from unacceptability.
Now that acceptable level is now defined under principle 3, which is establishing of the critical limits. So this is a criteria which separates the acceptability from the unacceptability in case of any CCP.
Principle 4. Establish monitoring procedure.
So after the critical limits have been decided, the fourth principle is establishing a monitoring procedure. So each such organization should have a monitoring procedure, which is a scheduled measurement or a observation of a CCP relative to its critical limits. That means the periodicity of that monitoring procedure should be defined.
Principle 5. Establish corrective action. Any action and activity that can be used to prevent or eliminate a food safety hazard or reduce it to an acceptable level.
Now we come to the next principle, which is principle 5. This is establishing corrective action. Now what happens if the critical limits are exceeded? That means organizations must have a procedure for corrective action. So they have to be developed for each such CCP in the HACCP system in order to deal with all kinds of deviations which can occur. So this is again, it is an activity which is used to prevent or eliminate the food safety hazard or reduce it to an acceptable level.
Principle 6. Establish verification procedure.
The sixth principle is establishing the verification procedures. That is, this could be done through audits, this could be done through other procedures and tests, like even your tests for your products. So these are procedures for verification through audits, tests, etc., including even random sampling and analysis. They are used to determine if the HACCP system that has been put in place by the organization is effective and it is working correctly.
7. Establish record keeping and documentation.
The last principle, which is the seventh principle, is that all these HACCP plans and all the other relevant procedures, they must be documented and there has to be effective record keeping. Although the standard does not mandate any mandatory such documents, because that will depend upon, or it will be based on the kind of the organization and the size of the organization. But yes, documentation is essential for application of any HACCP system.
The HACCP system, IS 15000-2013, prerequisite requirements. There are certain prerequisite requirements which the company or plant needs to maintain before HACCP certification is granted to them. This includes plant hygiene, personnel hygiene, food hygiene, any legal requirements or legislations to be followed, training of staff. Examples of prerequisite programs: building and equipment design, cleaning and sanitization, proper facilities of storage, cold storage, chemical stores, personnel hygiene like hand washing, good hygienic practices, maintenance, waste management, pest control, approved suppliers, operational control like policy, documents, work instructions, and staff training. Following are the HACCP requirements. HACCP team fixes limits of critical control points, monitoring system, corrective actions after hazard analysis, product description, verification mechanism, identification of the CCPs, records, identification of users. So far in HACCP, we have talked about hazard analysis. Let's now focus on critical control points. Critical control points are most important process steps where the control measures must be applied to prevent, eliminate, or reduce the hazards to an acceptable level. Example, chlorination, filtration, RO, UV, etc. in water treatment. What are critical limits? Well, critical limits are safety limits which separate the acceptable from the unacceptable. Hazard, physical. Control, filtration. Monitoring, filter sieves. Critical limit, turbidity less than 1 NTU. Monitoring system. Set up checks for control measures at the critical control points to confirm that the process is under control within the critical limits. Corrective actions. Actions that decide what to do when critical limits are exceeded. Verification. Verify that the HACCP plan is working. What kind of documentation is required? Well, keep records. For example, chlorine dosing records, chlorination monitoring records, filter check records, water testing records. All of these records are an essential part of the entire documentation. Well, implementation, they say, is most critical. So let's really understand implementation of HACCP. Here is the logical sequence for application of HACCP, IS 15000-2013. Assemble the HACCP team, describe the product, identify its intended use, construct flow diagram, on-site verification of flow diagram, list all potential hazards, conduct hazard analysis, and determine control measures. And the next step is determine CCPs, the critical control points. So establish critical limit for each critical control point, establish a monitoring system for each of the control points, establish corrective action for any deviations, establish verification procedures, establish record keeping and documentation.
Implementing HACCP does not mean undoing quality assurance procedures or good manufacturing practices already established by a company. It does, however, require revision of those procedures and part of the systematic approach and for their appropriate integration into the HACCP plan. The practical implementation of a HACCP system normally follows a methodology consisting of 12 sequential steps, which is based on the 7 principles and 5 preliminary steps. These include conducting hazard analysis, determining critical control points, establishing critical limits, monitoring CCPs, establishing corrective actions and verifications to confirm that the system is working effectively. The HACCP system can be applied throughout the food chain from primary producers to the consumers.
Process of application for HACCP certification. Application submission, scrutiny by BIS, adequacy audit, preliminary pre-audit visit, audit team appointment, initial certification audit, followed by audit report, recommendations for award of certificate, certificate granted, surveillance, and finally renewal. So friends, if you are in the business of food, get the HACCP certification. It is a gateway of opportunities to grow and win the trust of your consumers, distributors, partners, and stakeholders. Thank you for watching.